Hey guys, it's the Red Shadow again, and this is my monthly Roundup video combined with my monthly pickup video because I only have one actual pickup to show, so there wasn't much use in doing a full video for that. I could combine the two things this month around and just knock it out in one video. Yeah, it's definitely my being unemployed for a couple of months definitely caught up with me. I was still able to pick up the occasional thing within the last couple of months here and there, stuff you've seen in at least the last one or two videos. I was still able to purchase some games over the course of the month of September, but they were limited run games, meaning I paid for them this month and I'll see them like 6 months from now. And nothing that I ordered earlier in the year is on its way, at least not to the point of sending me a notification on the app on my phone that tracks those kind of purchases. So yeah, it was just kind of a bummer to see this month come and go without really anything coming in. But the one thing that I did get was something I've been wanting to get for a super long time. That's DVD copy of Can't Buy Me Love. This is like one of my favorite 80s comedies, regardless of, what critical reviews of it may be. I've seen some decent reviews and I've seen a lot of really bad reviews for it. I think it's really great. But what is funny about it is I wanted to watch it like a couple of months ago, and I wondered if YouTube does, like, you can watch a lot of movies on YouTube that are free but with ads in the middle of them. YouTube ads that just brutally interrupt whatever it is you're watching. And I didn't find a standard free with ads version, but someone had uploaded the movie, which sometimes people do, and sometimes movies like that will just stay on YouTube. And you can check them out. So I went to watch it. It had to have been sometime in like early to mid-August, something like that. And within a couple of seconds, muted, audio gone, because it was playing Beatles' Can't Buy Me Love, and it would have been like a copyright strike or a video takedown or whatever if they had left the audio during that time. And this is a movie that's got a lot of good music in it from the 80s, and it was definitely not going to be fun to sit there and watch, where more than half the movie was probably muted out. So I was upset, but I was like, all right, let's go back. I'd had this movie on my watch list for quite a while from an eBay seller, and I thought, if it lasts long enough, I'll pick it up. And finally I did. It was only $9. Ordered it from him, got it in. Got it in probably the first week or within the first 10 days of the month. Popped it into my PlayStation 4, and up it popped onto the screen, but it was in full screen, which it does say here in the specifications. I don't know if it said it on the eBay listing or not, or if I just didn't pay any attention, but I pop it up on the TV and it's in full screen, and I'm like, I thought, okay, that seems weird. Let me go back to YouTube, see if I can find that version of it that was on YouTube and see if it was widescreen or not. I search it up, and the version that I had looked at didn't come up in the search, but the YouTube free with ads version was suddenly there. It was uploaded on September 1st. So sometime between when I tried to watch it on YouTube and I found just a random upload with the audio muted, and the time that I had gotten my copy of the movie in, YouTube had uploaded it with the music and the audio in it, and it was widescreen. Now, whether or not it was natively widescreen or if it was zoomed in, but I had both the DVD paused in the background and then YouTube pause on the same scene, and I would swap back and forth into the YouTube app and back out to where the DVD was playing, and it didn't really look like any of the screen was getting cut or chopped off. That's usually what happens when you take like a full screen movie and you basically zoom in to make it widescreen, or you stretch it out. I didn't see anything that was deformed or messed up in that way. So if there's a widescreen version of this on DVD out there, I'm going to feel stupid for, grabbing this. But I shared this in a Facebook group that I'm a part of, and some people in there were like, oh, I'm waiting for the Blu-ray release. I'm waiting for the Blu-ray release. So I'm hoping that there actually will be a Blu-ray release at some point. I think I will just hold out for that. I have a copy of it on DVD, and that's fine. Why does my throat and shit do this whenever I'm trying to do a video? And then maybe I'll just keep my fingers crossed that there'll be a Blu-ray somewhere down the road, and this will just be something in the collection to put on the shelf. So that was the only physical pickup that I had. I was going to mention that about a week ago I came across an article that said from September 15th until September 30th on the PlayStation Store, there were 4 video games that were massively reduced on sale to $4 or less. And those games were digital, of course. It was the original Psychonauts, it was Batman Arkham Knight, it was The Wolf Among Us, and it was the horror game Soma. I already own physical copies of Arkham Knight and The Wolf Among Us, and I own PS2 copy of Psychonauts. But I didn't have Soma because that was one of those digital-only games that I've been holding out for years, that it would get a physical release from like a Limited Run Games or somebody. And it still hadn't done it, so I went ahead and coughed up. It was $2.99, not $3.99. And then I was also going to get Psychonauts just so that I could play it, because I've never beat it. I've played it years ago. I have never completed it. I thought, well, it'd be nice to have it. It did have a physical Limited Run Games release, but I missed that one. That one hurt when I missed that. And I thought, well, I'll just get this digital version so I can play it on the PS4. It was already in my library. So either I'd already bought and paid for it at a previous time, or it was a PS Plus offering, but I don't think it had the PS Plus symbol on it in my library, like some of the other games I thought did. But, so I already had that. So I spent $3 and got Soma. Soma is from, I don't remember the name of the developer, but they're the developer behind the Amnesia games, which I have played Amnesia. I don't know that I ever beat Amnesia, the main Amnesia, the first Amnesia game. But it was like a formative game experience for me with YouTube, because the summer of 2012, when I first discovered that YouTube had all this really cool stuff on it, like Let's Play videos, walkthroughs, and just video game content in general, I first started watching and subscribing to several YouTubers whose main forte was playing horror games, and Amnesia was one of the big ones. And Soma was a game that came out a few years later from them that had more of a sci-fi angle to it, and I really thought it was awesome. I think I actually like it better than Amnesia, and it may just be because it's, like I said, it was a few years after Amnesia, so it was graphically, it was tight, a little tighter, graphics looked a little better. I think they had a little bit of a better grasp on storytelling, and if I remember right, there aren't a lot of instances in Soma when you have to run away and hide like you do in Amnesia. In other words, Amnesia has a lot of fail states. I don't remember Soma having that. I could be completely wrong. All I remember is just a vague recollection of the story behind it, and watching several people play through it. But even at this point now, several years later, I could sit down and play Soma now and it'll be relatively fresh for me. So yeah, that would basically be my 2 pickups for the month. Can't Buy Me Love on DVD, Soma digital copy on PS4. So that'll move me now to the monthly roundup part, and this shouldn't be too lengthy, hopefully. I wrote this down on here, so I'm just going to kind of go through it in the order that I kind of remember. So the main thing that I played on my PS4 this last month was Secret of Mana, something that I started to play back when it first came out, and played maybe an hour into it, liked it, knew I would come back to it at some point, didn't until, this last month. I've played a fair way into it, and nothing against it, but I just keep getting distracted by some of the things I'll be mentioning on here. But I wish I could have been able to beat it, but it just didn't end up happening for me. Let's see, I did a video earlier in the month where I unboxed and hooked up a Nintendo Wii U that I bought 3 years ago, a refurbished Wii U that was in great shape, and I had a chance to play it a little bit the day that I uploaded the video, during that setup, and I played a little bit of Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I wanted to spend maybe a little bit more time playing games on it, but I hate jumping headfirst into something when I've got other games that I'm playing, including Secret of Mana. So I haven't played it since, but I was enjoying the game. I was trying to get used to the gamepad as the controller, but I had a second controller, that knockoff Wii U Pro controller. But like I said, I haven't went back to that to play any more of it. I'm just trying to prioritize what I'm playing, tie up some loose ends. I did end up hooking up the PlayStation 3 that I think I mentioned in that video, and I've been playing some Fallout 3 on it. Now, Fallout 3 is a game that I played a handful of years ago on PC, and I enjoyed it. Quite a bit, but I had a weird experience with it. And what happened was I was playing on Steam, playing with the mouse and keyboard. By that point, I had gotten used to playing mouse and keyboard for first-person shooter games, whether they were more active FPSs, say, I think I played Battlefield 3 on Steam years ago, or if it's a Half-Life 2 game, or Fallout, where it's less active or action-packed FPS and a little bit more story-based. And of course, Fallout 3 would definitely be considered a sort of Western RPG. And I just had more fun controlling a game like that with mouse and keyboard. But with the PS3, the PlayStation 3 is the only console that I have a copy of Fallout New Vegas for. I've played and beat Fallout 3. I've played and beat Fallout 4. I want to play New Vegas. It's the one of the main Fallout games that I haven't played, basically from 3 on. I don't care much for the style of Fallout 1 and 2, the PC and the isometric viewpoint and the point and click. In some games I like that. In that style of game I do not. I wanted to play New Vegas because I know it was made by Obsidian. I played The Outer Worlds. Yes, Outer World or Outer Worlds, whichever. And enjoyed that. I wanted to see Obsidian's take on Fallout. But because it's been several years since I've played Fallout 3, I wanted to replay it, and this time I was like, I'm going to play it on the PS3, and I wanted to have a different experience with it than what I had before, because my experience on PC, on Steam with it, was, you get out of the vault, you do the beginning part of the game, you get out of the vault, you end up in the nuclear wasteland of Washington, D.C. and the neighboring area, and you're almost guaranteed to end up at Megaton and do some of the stuff there, and you'll wander around and do other things. And so I did that in my first playthrough of the game. I probably put about 20 hours into, these people need something, so let me go do some stuff for them. And then now I'm going to just explore and go look around in this building and get attacked by super mutants and yada, yada, yada. And after I did a handful of side missions, and I know 20 hours seems like it'd be more than a handful. I mean, it was a decent amount. And I was like, man, I haven't really done any story missions in quite a while. Let's go actually do some of the main story missions. And the next thing I know, within 2 hours, I've completed them all. I've gotten to the final thing, the final boss battle or whatever it was, and then rolled credits. And Fallout 3 didn't have... It wasn't... what am I trying to say? A lot of open world games like that, including like a Fallout 4, if you can beat the main story and still be able to go back into the world and do stuff that you hadn't done before. Fallout 3, I guess, came out early enough that wasn't something they considered in the design of the game. So I was closed off. Even though I have a save that's like right before the final boss battle, I could go back to it and run around in that. I've started it on PS3. The problem that I'm finding is that I'm personally, it may be the way that I play, it may just be being stupid, but I'm not personally finding a lot of good gear, weapons, ammo. I'm not, especially not finding a lot of healing items, and I'm getting my ass handed to me a lot, and it's kind of pissing me off. So it's souring my experience with it. I'm starting to feel like I'm going to fall off of Fallout 3 for right now. I don't know. I just get really impatient, and then I just end up finding myself back on the PS4 watching YouTube. So, PS4, Secret of Mana. PS3 has been Fallout 3. Briefly on the Wii U, I played Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze. I did start on the PC Black Mesa, the fan-made... recreation of the original Half-Life in the Source engine. So basically like Half-Life remade to be technically, graphically the same as Half-Life 2. Project long in development for a long time. There was a free version available on Steam that was, I'd say, like 2/3 or 3/4 of the game. Near the end of that game, you go to what's called Zen. It's basically like the alien realm, or a rip in the space-time continuum or whatever, where you're in another dimension where the creatures that from the Half-Life games come from, the head crabs, the Vortigaunts, etc. When they were developing this mod or this version of Half-Life 1, apparently that part was giving them a lot of issues. It was taking a lot of time. And so, anyway, the free version of the game that leads up until that part was on Steam for a long time. I had it. I had played it. I really enjoyed of that, what there was. But then I heard that last year, or maybe even the year before, that the final version of the game was released, and you could now buy it on Steam. And it was like $19.99, and I was like, I'm going to get it at some point, but I don't really feel like spending $20 on something that I could access almost the entirety of for free in years prior, until I heard earlier in September that it was on sale for $4.99. So that was another pickup, I guess, a digital pickup from this past month. I got Black Mesa, and I was eager to jump into it because I've been eager to play Half-Life 2 again. I always get about every year, every other year, I want to run through Half-Life 2 in the episodes. And I thought, well, now's the perfect time to do everything that I can, aside from Half-Life Alyx. So I got into the game, and I'm rolling along, and it's great. Looks really good, controls very well. But then I noticed that there are some points in the game, no specific reasons for it that I can tell. There are just points in the game where it's god-awfully dark. And even your flashlight doesn't do anything. Even going into the settings and turning up the brightness, none of that has any real effect on it. It's almost impossible in certain aspects or certain portions of the game. A few times when you're in vents moving around, but other times just in hallways and regular areas. You're trying to figure out where you're going. You're being attacked by aliens or soldiers. I got really pissed off with it, and I've stopped playing it. I Googled what the hell was going on. Tons of people reporting the same problem. And apparently the issue was the developers of the game developed the game with NVIDIA and AMD in mind, and basically said, fuck you to anything Intel related. And my computer is just a standard off-the-shelf Walmart special with decent specs, aside from it not being a gaming computer, so therefore it has an integrated graphics card, and sure, they're shitty, but I can still play stuff like World of Warcraft. I can still play Gmod and Half-Life 2. You would think that a game that was basically recreating Half-Life 1 in the same engine as Half-Life 2, I'd be able to play it if I'm able to do Half-Life 2. But because they basically just turned their back on developing in regards to Intel anything, those of us who have Intel anything get shit on. The developers had addressed it at some point, and their statement basically was, yes, this is a known issue. If you're AMD or NVIDIA, you're good. If you're Intel, we're sorry. Maybe somewhere down the road, someday we'll do something about it. But like I said, the game has been out since, I think, 2020 or maybe even sometime in 2019. They're aware of the problem. Nothing has been done yet. It sucks, though. It's felt like a whole lot of game experiences for me the last month have been closed off to me because of weird decisions and stupid things, or my pathetic inability to play games like normal human being. But it's one of the things that I was into for a time this past month, so it has to be brought up. Let's see, what else do I want to bring up? I think that's about it for gaming stuff. I did want to bring up some Gmod related stuff, though, because in the month of September I stumbled across one particular channel. I believe the channel's name is The Librarian, but just the phenomenon of liminal spaces, and especially in Gary's Mod, because I love Gary's Mod so much. People creating maps that highlight and allow you to just soak yourself in liminal spaces. I didn't know what that meant when I first saw it. I was like, that sounds like a very interesting term. And I had to look it up to see what liminal spaces meant or what it was all about. And it's basically like if you imagine a hallway, or you imagine maybe even like almost any room in a business that has hours. If you think about a room, a hallway, a doorway, anything like that, that's kind of meant as a passage between two normal living spaces or whatever. And in these maps, you tend to be in something like a hotel, a hospital, or just a mind-twisting facility that's loaded with nooks and crannies and hallways and areas that it's just like I'm fascinated with the concept, not to the point to like go balls deep in it or anything, but I did download several liminal space Gmod maps and run around in them. Some of them are deliberately meant to be scary, and they'll have jump scares and creatures or things that are walking around, not necessarily monstrous creatures, but like dark figures, shadowy ghosts, etc., etc. I had a lot of fun just kind of playing around with that. But like I said, I became just somewhat fascinated with the idea that people were like into that concept of this is a hallway, and the only time that people are in it is when they're just walking through. It's not like they're in their living room sitting on their couch watching TV, or in their bedroom sleeping. They're not in the kitchen cooking. They're not in the bathroom taking a shower. You know, these hallways and doorways, foyers, or even, like I said before, like in a business. If you think about a business, if you think of like a clinic or a doctor's office or something, and there's a receptionist behind the desk, and there's a doctor in another room, and there's nurses walking around, and there's people sitting in the waiting room waiting to get in. But then at the end of the day, they shut the place down and everybody leaves, and now all that space is just empty and desolate and alone. I immediately thought of Stephen King's The Langoliers, and in particular the TV miniseries for that book or short story, I think it was, that Stephen King wrote. And the way that had it postulated that things like the world, buildings, roads, all that kind of stuff is sort of a static thing that's always existing, and time, life, is like a wave that washes across it. And so you could be standing at one point in it, they're in an airport, and they believe that they're about to catch up and sync back up with real time. And so they're sitting in an airport that's kind of dimly lit. The light, the life is absent, but the chairs and the carpet and the walls are all there. These people have been displaced, and they're in that, and then they wait, and then they sort of see like a rippling effect as time catches up to where they are waiting for it to be. And now they're in time, and it's bustling, and people are walking around, and they find out that after that wave of time and life moves beyond that, what happens in that area. And then of course in the Langoliers, it's these horribly CG'd monstrosities that are just nothing but mouths and teeth that just eat up that plane of existence. And if you don't get back into the wave of time or whatever it is, if you're still waiting in that desolate space, then it will eat you and all that up. Jeez. So I don't know, it reminded me of that. Nobody that I've watched has talked about that movie or that idea, but it might be a completely different concept. But anyway, it was just something I found interesting, and I thought I would bring it up if anybody wanted to look up liminal spaces and check that out. And then the last two things that I want to talk about, roughly two things, are TV show related. I finally wrapped up my complete watch of The X-Files that started all of last October. Ended today, September 30th. It's still September 30th as I'm recording this. I think it was earlier today, or it may have even been yesterday. Yeah, no, it was yesterday, because I did the video. I was going to point out that I have a video up now about my thoughts on the last two seasons, the newer X-Files seasons. So I got it done. I wanted to get it done before October. I was like, if I'm a complete year later and I'm still watching this show, I'm going to feel real dumb. But I got done with it, and so My thoughts are in that video, but just want to say I really enjoyed seasons 10 and 11 a lot more than I thought I was going to. I also had my first complete viewing of the Lone Gunman spin-off series in years. I think I've only ever watched it all the way through once before, and it had been a long, long time ago. Enjoyed that show, but I don't think it was necessary. In my opinion, there was no reason to take this very popular group, the Lone Gunmen, from the X-Files and give them their whole entire show that felt way too much like a espionage, spy / James Bond kind of show. Our Lone Gunmen seemed very, very much like, misfit conspiracy theorists like Mulder. And I don't think that Mulder would have ever acted like he was some sort of secret agent, 007 type. But for some reason, the Lone Gunman show turned them into something along those lines. And they were always, in my opinion, two things in the X-Files. The Lone Gunmen were, first and foremost, comic relief. They were always funny. They always complimented any kind of a show, whether there was an episode that was more comedic, although I don't know how often they even showed up in the comedy episodes. I think they, more often than not, came along in more serious-minded episodes to give it some is it levity, brevity? And then they could also be very, very serious support characters for Mulder and Scully. And that's what I appreciated about them. I think instead of giving them this show that didn't last very long and got canceled, I wish just over the course of the original 9 seasons, they would have just had 1 or 2 more episodes every season. We could have just seen them more in their natural habitat as opposed to trying to shoehorn them into their own little thing. And then on top of that, as I mentioned, they were comic relief for the X-Files. Then they got their own show where they were still silly and funny and all that kind of stuff. But then they added a character in James Bond, who was comedic relief for the comedic relief from the X-Files. It was just baffling. And I liked the actor, and at times I even liked his portrayal of the character of Jimmy, but I don't know. I think he was the weakest part of the show. And then there's a female character who was Lee Harvey Oswald, or I'm blanking now on Eve Odette Harlow, which was an anagram, I believe, for Lee Harvey Oswald, or anagram may not be the right term. I don't care at this point right now. I think you know what I mean. When you rearrange the letters of Lee Harvey Oswald, one of the things you get is Eve Odette Harlow. I liked her character. I liked her acting for the most part. She was serious. She was like a rival to them, but she would work with them. You never knew what side she was on. But Jimmy was just like this big, dumb oaf who at times was smarter than anybody else on the show. And was, like I said, comedic relief for a group that was comedic relief. It just wasn't necessary. So that's my thoughts on the Lone Gunman. Fine, it was a fine show. It's still fun to watch. It was just so utterly pointless, and they made some weird decisions. And some of the episodes were duds to me, and some of them were way better than they had any right to be. And then I thought I would point out that I've also started watching slowly Firefly, a show that I've watched countless times through before, but a reaction channel that I like decided that she was going to watch Firefly. A lot of reaction channels nowadays that do shows and movies tend to do big movies and then pick 1 or 2 or 3 shows to watch through the episodes of, and they watch the whole entire thing. And she decided to do Firefly I think because, amongst other things, people had said it was really good, but they also said it was short, so it could be something to get through easily. Not like taking on 8 seasons of Game of Thrones or 11 seasons of The X-Files. So every time she puts up a reaction to the next episode in the series, I go rewatch that episode and then watch her reaction. I don't know about anybody else, but I love reaction style stuff for music and movies and TV shows, because it kind of gives me a new appreciation for things that I like, and I love seeing someone watch these shows and get their thoughts on it, see it through their eyes, especially when it's something that, like X-Files from the 90s. Nobody that I've ever seen is reacting to the X-Files. I would love it if one of the channels that I do watch would do it, but like I said, it's a big it's a big thing to bite off. 11 seasons and 2 movies for that would take the average reaction channel a long time. That's like almost 220 episodes and 2 full-length films. So, but anyway, my point is just that I enjoy reaction stuff, and to me it's a little bit more fun when I can watch somebody reacting to something as I'm watching it again, as opposed to just sitting down and watching things again. Maybe I would have stayed more motivated with the X-Files if somebody that I watched was doing that show. I meandered way too many times over the last year, and sometimes sat down for weeks without watching any episodes. So, Firefly, in the middle of that, 7 episodes into that, that's 14 episodes in a movie. Finished off the X-Files, watched The Lone Gunman. Obviously, X-Files, Lone Gunman, and the last of the Firefly and Lone Gunman were in September. The last of the X-Files was in September. So anyway, this has been the monthly roundup, and I'm rambling, and it's once again going way too long, so we'll shut her down now. But that was September. Hopefully October will be a little bit better. I'm gonna try once again to throw maybe some horror movies and some horror games into the mix for the month of Halloween. So we'll see at the other end of the month just how well I do on that. We'll see if I stick to it or not. And hopefully we'll have enough pickups this coming month to do own video, separate video for that, like I normally do. Alright guys, anyway, that's it for me. We'll see you next time.